Your program will begin shortly. Launch sequence. Activate. Warning, the following content is not politically correct. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the channel today, everyone. I'm Sarah Higdon. This is Transform to Freedom. Hope y'all had a good Memorial Day last week. Obviously, being a veteran myself, it's an interesting day to honor those that I served with, those that sacrificed their lives in combat. And so it's always a day that I like to take off and kind of reflect on. So so that's why I don't say like the happy Memorial Day, because it's not really a happy day for me. But it is a good day to be around people you care about, and enjoy the day off, enjoy the barbecue. You know, you could look at it kind of like a celebration of life for those that died for your freedoms. So yeah, so we weren't here, obviously. And also, just so y'all know, not going to be here the next probably 2 weeks. So next week, I leave early Tuesday morning for Vegas. Actually, so going to Vegas, no, then Palm Springs on Wednesday for Freedom Fest. So next week is Freedom Fest. If you have your tickets, or if you don't have your tickets, you're going to miss out. It's going to be a good event. So I'm going to be speaking on Saturday, but I'm going to be there with For the People all week, or I guess the 4 days starting Wednesday. And then I don't get back until late Sunday evening. And so Monday is going to be kind of a compression or decompression day for me. And then the week after, so I will then be flying out on Thursday to go to Pork Fest. So I will be at Pork Fest Thursday, Friday, leaving Saturday. So if you're up in New Hampshire for that, definitely come check it out. Come say hi. Yeah, both of those are gonna be great events. And so yeah, but I'm just gonna take some time with that. Now, don't fret though. We have some I have some stuff in the works right now for what we're going to be doing, some stuff at those events, and hopefully bringing some new content, some new interviews, and whatnot from those events as well. So I got some people that I really want to talk to while we're there, and so we should have some content coming up now. Whether it's on this channel or on Free the People's channel, not sure yet. It's probably going to be posted on Free the People's channel. So I would implore everybody, go make sure that you are subscribed to Free the People's YouTube channel, as well as across all social media platforms. It's just Free the People, or you can go to freethepeople.org and check out all the content that they have over there. Because as you know, I am the digital marketing manager over there. Now, this show and this channel are independent of Free the People. This is my opinions, not that of the organizations. But I do think that everybody should go over there and check out the work that we're doing over there. It's good stuff. But we're going to be doing quite a bit. So I have some stuff kind of on the horizon that I'm going to be working on that I'm really excited for. And so you just stay tuned here, stay tuned over there, and hopefully you won't miss me too much. But kind of getting into it, this was hilarious over the weekend. If you didn't see this, let's kind of just start diving into the news. Now, Cory Booker. Uh-oh. Interesting, right? Well, let's just play the video. Wait. What's that? Was that a Nazi salute that Cory Booker just gave? Interesting, right? I think there's a post on X that kind of highlights this. I mean, I was told that same gesture, back in January when Elon Musk did a similar gesture, it was a Nazi salute. But yet right now, the media is silent on it. And again, this is why you don't hate the media enough. Like, the mainstream media is completely silent on this. They didn't say anything about this. It was like mainstream news constantly. CNN talking about it, everything when Elon Musk did it. But here we go. I mean, this is a side-by-side comparison. So you can't say that these are not the same. Look. Show me a difference. Show me a difference. It's the hypocrisy here. Obviously, both of them were saying the same thing. My heart goes out to you. Basically saying thank you to the crowd. But when one side does it, the media, it's this big story and it's a Nazi salute. But when Cory Booker does it, yeah, it's crickets. Oh, I did forget. Yeah, it is June, right? It's June 2nd. So it's it's that month that we don't like to talk about. Which, interesting, it's technically Pride Month, right? And I guess we do always kind of start slow in this month. But we'll see. I mean, I haven't seen like the corporations necessarily like changing their logos like they usually do. It has been kind of quiet, which is a good thing in my opinion. I think that all the pandering needs to stop when it comes to Pride Month. I wish that Pride Month was like no longer a thing. Pride can be a day. You can say, hey, we're gonna honor or respect LGBT people or recognize LGBT people this one day. But when it's like there's like a day for something every month of the year, and trans people have to be involved in every single event that happens in the community, otherwise it's not inclusive enough. Yeah, I think most of the people that I know in the LGBT community don't really celebrate Pride. So, we're not doing that on this channel. So, I'm just kind of we're gonna move past that. And as you know, I almost completely forgot. But kind of going back, I like to go back to stuff that we've talked about in the past. Good evening, Jimmy Digital. Thank you. But talking about stuff that's happened. Remember last year? Was it last year? The Olympics last year, when there were two boxers who, with DSD condition, DSD disorders, were competing in the Olympics, even though their chromosomal test showed that they were both males. They were competing in women's boxing. And so, once again, this is back in the news. It's been revealed that Algerian Olympic women's boxer Aman Khalif is a man. The male. Blocked from boxing competitions in the Netherlands. So now blocked from another boxing competition as sex test results from the 2023 International Boxing Association Championships have revealed that Algerian boxer Aman Khalif, who gained attention after sweeping through a women's boxing division at the 2024 Olympics in Paris, has male DNA. The test report was obtained by Three Wire Sports, which reportedly has testing was done in India's lab. Let me see. The report stated that the test was conducted on March 17, 2023, and stated chromosome analyst reveals male karyotype, which means some sort of XY. It could be XXY, it could be X30, what is it, 42, 46XY. We talked about this a lot last year. So this is and this kind of goes to a statement that talking about with me and JK Rowling had a back and forth last week. It was a good conversation. It wasn't like we were it wasn't a back and forth. We were kind of talking about this issue and talking about males with DSD conditions, right? And I think we both had agreed that, well, it's not, again, this person's not trans. It's my heart actually goes out to Khalif, who was born in a country that doesn't necessarily have the same sex-based education standards that we do. Not the most accepting country for people who are not within the norms of society. And so grows up thinking that they're female because presentation wise everything looks female. Starts boxing because obviously they have an advantage in boxing, and so their parents get them into sports. Then it gets to a point where they're competing professionally, competing in the Olympics. They take a chromosome test because just something's off, and those chromosome tests determine that this person determines that you're male. So my point was, I feel for this person because they're not trans. They didn't choose this. They didn't choose to transition. Like I would say, clarify that nobody chooses to have gender dysphoria, but what we do choose is how we treat gender dysphoria, which for me was to take hormones and present differently. But this person didn't make that choice. They were born with a condition that makes them appear this way. And a lot of people would say, but at the same time, once you find out that, and here is actually the leaked report, the chromosomal test. Once you find out that you're male and have internalized male organs, that becomes an issue, and I start to lose my sympathy for you if you continue to compete with females. I think J.K. Rowling had the same idea as I did on that as well. Yeah, I start to lose my sympathy for you if you continue to compete in the male category in that regard, or in the female category. I'm sorry. But if you continue to compete after you already know that you are a male, then I start to lose my sympathy for you. And a lot of people are coming out and saying, well, this person knew by puberty, which, and I would just say that that's applying a Western bias to this. In a country like Algeria, I would assume that it's not necessarily, like, DSD conditions aren't well known. it's not a country where a female is going to go like tell their dad that they haven't had their period yet. And when you're in competition sometimes, and they may have thought this was normal, when you're competing at high levels sometimes, cycles are not regular. And so there is this interpretation that you could have that Khalif didn't know until 2023. But at that point, after that point, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have any sympathy for you. So this is just this is kind of a roll on of what we've discussed here in the past, but it is really interesting. Nancy Hogshead makes a good point. She says, "Do all the trans when it comes to male athletes competing in female sports?" And talking about this, so Nancy was responding to a person that says, "Do all the TERFs and JK Rowlings of the world not realize how awful this new policy is for women? In order to compete in boxing events, all women must undergo invasive examinations, not just Olympics boxer Khalif. How exactly is that a win for women? Women will pass this test, right? Females will pass this test." And it's not really an invasive procedure. It's a cheek swab. It's not like they have to like go and like internally check you or anything like that. And also, I talked about this before. Every single athlete has to go through a sports physical. A sports physical is much more invasive than a cheek swab test. So, but Nancy says, do all the trans advocates not realize how awful their policy of trans women are women is? If you set out to unleash an anti-trans backlash, just show more males in female sports. Fairness is foundational principle in sports. Seeing unfairness triggers rage and hurts the cause in society broadly. Oh, and sex talks about the cheek swab. Such a good point, right? If you wanted to hurt the acceptance of trans people, and you know that the sports issue is like an 80-20 issue. 80% of the people don't believe that trans women are women. They know that they are male. And so showing males competing in female sports, which 80% of the population doesn't agree with, what's that going to do? It's going to cause irreparable harm to those you are claiming to represent. And I've talked about this before. I've have an op-ed about this. They're literally using this to hammer home their neo-Marxist agenda that encompasses what the left is. They don't care actually about the people in these communities which they are harming. They only care about pushing their agenda. And when the acceptance rates for the trans community is completely destroyed, they'll just move on, leaving all the trans people out there, the actual transsexuals who have to live in the world that they created. These people that are the advocates for the community are not going to care because they can just self-ID out. It really is, and this is why it's hard. I start to be more cynical day in, day out, because it's hard to really know what's genuine activism and what's not. Like, I started like this weekend. I was like, okay, this feels like a psyop. But if you were trying to actually promote this idea, like, again, so if you're actively trying to promote that trans people aren't these crazy lunatics that we see online, then you wouldn't be doing this. And actually doing stuff like this pushes people away from your agenda into the other agenda. So if you were on the right, why wouldn't you think about creating accounts to advocate for this type of stuff, to show like the irony, like to show how awful these policies are? I would think so. I mean, there's the psyops, and then there's the psyop of a psyop, you know. It's really hard to know which is which, because it seems like either people are just dumb and they don't know how to, you know, influence people and, you know, make friends and influence people. So they don't know how to do that, or they know what they're doing and they know it's going to cause harm to, it's going to cause a lack of acceptance. It's going to do the exact opposite of what they're claiming it's going to do. I don't know. I think both can be right at the same time, and to be quite honest, but I don't know. It is interesting though, you know, that thing that they say that doesn't happen. Well, it keeps happening. And this weekend was a big weekend for that thing that doesn't happen to keep happening. Here's a male athlete competing in Washington State. And remember, as I go through some videos and some stories here, all of this is against Title IX, and it's against the Trump executive order that says males, you know, to codify Title IX, that males do not belong in female sports, and saying that he's going to take away federal funding from the states that do allow males to compete in female sports. But it's still happening. Like, look, this is a male athlete completely destroying female athletes.
And Veronica Garcia is your state champ in that 2A 400.
And again, I want to stress this point that it doesn't matter if the trans athlete, if the male athlete wins or loses or takes second or third or fourth. It doesn't matter. They are literally they are taking spots away from female athletes on the playing field over here. Hey, Todd. Better late than never, right? No, we have not discussed Glenn Greenwald, and I don't know if I'm going to tonight. I don't know if I want to discuss Glenn Greenwald. I have my my views on Glenn, but feel free to share yours. Discuss in the chat. Maybe we'll talk about it later. I don't know. I have it. I don't know if we're going to though. I there's so much there that's just he said, she said. Even with the video, which I did not watch, don't want to watch it, don't care to watch it, don't really care what people do in their private business. So we'll see if we get to it later. Then we have, where is this? This is in, that was in Washington. This is in Oregon. Female track and field competitors refuse to stand on winner's podium with trans athlete. This is the way to do. I think that they would have been better if they hadn't competed. But they cleared these two out from the podium and said, you can't stand here because, but good on these girls. And again, I talked about it when I was on Candace Horback's show. A couple weeks ago now. And it's so sad that this is what it's taking. It's taking, we're asking middle and high school students to be the adults in the room and be the ones to protest this, rather than us being the adults in the room and stopping trans athletes from competing, or stopping male athletes from competing in female sports. We're asking them to do stuff like this. But they said, let me see where these two said in a statement, and good on them. Good on them, you know. Let's see if they, People talking to Fox News said, "We didn't refuse to stand on the podium out of hate. We did it because someone has to say this isn't right. In order to protect our integrity and fairness of girls' sports, we must stand up for what is right." Then the incident comes as Oregon faces Title IX discrimination complaint filed by America's First Policy Institute. And that is right. I don't blame any of these female athletes for protesting in any way, shape, or form. Somebody has to stand up and say this isn't right. And when 80% of the country agrees that this isn't right, and it's still continuing to happen, people aren't stepping up more. More people are not stepping out and saying what everybody else knows to be true. Somebody has to, and good on these girls for doing that, for standing up for what is right for them. Now, California, California has a new rule that they've proposed in this regard, right? It's really interesting that they had to propose this regard, because this A.B. Hernandez also won like every event at the track and field finals this weekend in California. Gavin Newsom, remember we talked about Gavin Newsom a couple weeks ago, probably a couple months ago now, talking about how he knows that it's an issue of fairness. Remember, I said I pointed out he didn't say it wasn't fair. He said it's an issue of fairness. Basically saying we need to look more into it. It's an issue of fairness or not. But what I will say is they've proposed a new, so the whole thing is they've proposed a new solution. And under this new California rule, instead of removing male athletes from competing in female sports, they said the California Interscholastic Federation will award female athletes the same medals as male athletes who beat her. So if a male athlete competes in girl sports, wins the race, the girl who comes in second place also gets gold. Basically, they're and I'll actually read. Emma Hilton lines this up pretty well, and what they're actually doing. Says, I don't think this is the solution, but I'm generally in favor of weighing up proposals. So let's look at this one. California high school sports have proposed to protect girls and accommodate trans boys as follows. If a male athlete gets a medal, blah, blah, blah. I just said that. So says, so in this example, Leah Thomas wins first, Helen wins second, Helen, who took second, now gets first. Sarah, who took third, now gets second. Basically, and she makes it basically, where is it? Basically, they're creating a trans category, but they're allowing them to compete in the female in the women's category, because their wins don't matter. Their wins are basically participation trophies, because they're not actually competing in any category, because if they win, then the female athlete that takes second is actually the winner. What's hard about this one, because I think on its face you would say it's actually not a bad solution on its face. However, as Emma points out, swimming lanes are a finite resource. Track lanes are a finite resource. An open trail over the Rockies is not a finite resource. It might be possible in this type of event. So like a cross-country event, maybe you allow this, because you're not taking up a lane in a swimming pool that should belong to a female athlete. You're not taking that spot away from a female athlete. You're not in a track, and so you could maybe do it in field events but not track events, because their lanes in a track are a finite resource. So I agree with that. Individual events, say weightlifting, it might be possible to record people within a trans category and let the trans identified male lift in turn with female lifters. It's an accommodation of sorts, as she points out, but there is still, again, we're talking about this and there's still issues with this. And she says, if you're going to do a trans category, do it properly. Do it properly. And this may not, this may actually be illegal. Obviously, it will out trans people, but two girls with different performance sharing the podium will attract a ton of attention, and I doubt CIF intended to flag their trans athletes quite so obviously. Boys swelling the female ranks might be bonkers. More podiums, more places allocated. You might actually get to a point where you may not even have females competing in female sports because there's so many male athletes, because now it's like it's an open category. Because again, it's not a finite resource. And she makes a good point. If you're going to operate trans category in the same time and space as boring old sex categories, why not do it in the same time and space as the male category? Which, I agree. I think it's just giving them the participation trophy to say, hey, yeah, you beat the females, but those females but it doesn't really matter because those females are now going to get the same awards as they would have gotten. It's a way to accommodate but not accommodate. It also doesn't cover the fact that, again, finite resources, but not even just finite resources. What happens in volleyball, for example? Women's volleyball. If you're competing in volleyball, what happens to those male athletes? We're only, because this is only talking about like racing events. Like this is like the only time that you could really do it is like in racing events, because in volleyball, there's only so many spots on the court and everybody's competing against everybody. We talked about boxing earlier. How do you do it in a boxing match? You just let male athletes beat up girl athletes and, beat up the female athletes. And then if the male athlete wins the competition, then it's okay because the second place person then takes first. Most sports are not race-based, and this category that they're creating seems to be simply be set on race standards, not race and track and field and in events that are not like direct competition, right? It'd be like a male athlete on a soccer field isn't okay, but there's no like way that this affects that at all. And then I think that they actually did it where this person did win and shared the podium with female athletes. So the federation said the rule would open the field to more biological female athletes. One expert said the change itself may be discriminatory because it creates an extra spot for biological female athletes, but not for other trans athletes. Yeah. So it's wild the way that, I mean, it's an interesting solution to consider, but I don't think it fits the bill of what's needed to be done. Obviously, there's way too many variables, and it just doesn't. It still allows male athletes to take the spots of females in most sporting events, and so it still should not be considered. It's not the solution. All right, but moving on, I kind of want to talk about this real quick. So if you didn't know, the FBI, there was a terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, as there was a march for there was a march for Israeli hostages this last weekend, and the FBI charges the terror suspect in firebombing attack. So there's some videos of this, but this person attacked this group with essentially fire bombs, Molotov cocktails, which he's holding in his hand. A peaceful pro-Israel demonstration in Boulder, Colorado. So, let me see. It was considered, yeah, the FBI considered it a terrorist attack. Let me see. Here's the video.
I'm able to confirm there are 6 victims, ages 67 to 88. All of them have been transported to local hospitals. This attack happened at a regularly scheduled weekly peaceful event. Witnesses are reporting that the subject used a makeshift flamethrower and threw an incendiary device into the crowd. The suspect was heard to yell, "Free Palestine," during the attack. The subject has been identified as Mohammed Sabri Solomon, and he's 45 years old. The FBI is processing the crime scene and the subject vehicle and interviewing key witnesses. We're assisting Boulder Police in providing technical, analytic, and additional forensic resources. As a result of these preliminary facts, it is clear that this is a targeted act of violence, and the FBI is investigating this as an act of terrorism.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of clear the motivation, especially if the person's yelling "Free Palestine." And look, on this channel, I'm pretty critical of Israel and their actions. I've always kind of been the person that has I said from the very beginning of everything that's going on that I do believe that Israel has a right to exist and they have a right to respond for October 7th. However, I have my concerns over how they've responded and what they've been doing since. I've also advocated for a very long time that we should not be funding any country in the world, and that includes Israel. So, but at the same time, nothing justifies attacks on peaceful people and peaceful protesters. Like, an attack like this is simply un-American. They are holding a peaceful protest, and they should be able to do so without harm. And this type of thing is ramping up. And I have to say, I think there is this notion, and it's coming from the left. And it started with Luigi Maggio, or whatever his name is, Mangiani, the guy who shot the healthcare CEO. That they're basically saying, like, the left is now justifying that, has now started to justify violence being okay if it fits their cause. And so this type of attack is squarely on them. Again, you start to justify these types of things. More and more is going to happen. I think we were off and we didn't talk about the unfortunate and saddening event in Washington, D.C., where 2 embassy staffers, Israeli embassy staffers, were murdered in Washington, D.C. And again, we talked about earlier about winning people to your cause. Like, executing violence against people turns people away from your cause. I'm never going to justify violence for anybody's cause. Yeah, you're right, Jen. No one wins in war, especially with both sides thinking they are right. And that's part of the problem is I think we, in this situation, people are justifying horrendous actions from people. And they think that they're right and they are involved in a hot war. And so, it's the whole thing, all fares in love and war. They think that they're involved and that no matter what happens, it's maddening to me the people that are calling that talk about what's happening in Israel as being a genocide are the ones that are now justifying violence against peaceful people. Like, if you think what Israel is doing is wrong in killing civilians, then you should also think it's very wrong to kill innocent, peaceful people in any country in the world, especially whether they're on your side or not, whether they agree with your opinion or not. Violence is not justified in harming peaceful people. And so and this is kind of starting to become a bigger trend. And it's starting to ramp up the bigger trend. And I think that this will end up hurting the people who the pro-Palestine people much more in the end, because people see this happen and it pulls people to your side. It pulls or pushes people away from your side. Like, nobody should have to worry if they're going to an event to honor those that are still being held in captivity by a terrorist organization, that they will then become the victims of a terror attack like this. What's even worse is people like CNN calling the FBI, quote, juvenile for treating this as a terrorist attack. It was. The whole point is to make you afraid to protest, to make you afraid to speak your mind. That is the exact definition of terrorism. Let me see. Here we go.
Police chief comes out and says, we don't have 2 + 2 = 4 yet. In other words, this is obviously an anti-Semitic attack, and the victims were obviously part of that group. Therefore, we're not calling it terrorism. It adds a lot of it's not good for the community. It's not good for the potentially targeted community. It makes law enforcement look disorganized, and it makes the FBI look so juvenile. Like, why are you getting ahead of the police chief who says, I don't know what this is. It sounds, maybe it is what we all think it is, but maybe it's not. And he has no incentive to get it wrong. So we're going to take a step back, not be responsive to tweets by 2 heads of the FBI who don't have a long history in local law enforcement. And we will wait and hope it isn't what we all worry it is. And if it is, then there'll be an investigation. But that's like nothing I'd ever seen before. You normally, actually, Andrew knows this, you normally get the local people getting way ahead on motive and the FBI saying, we don't have it yet. You now have the...
It's pretty clear what the motive was if he's yelling free Palestine. They're just using this event to attack the current administration. They're using this event as a way to attack the FBI under Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, because they don't like those 2 people. But that's clearly what it is. It meets the definition of terrorism. And the police chief said, we are investigating this as terrorism. Like, come on now. Libby had a good take on this as well. She was spot on.
Libby, real quick before we go to break, I know I'm sure you've been following the story in Boulder, and this is kind of a similar situation where you have a liberal police chief who's put in place by liberals, failing to call this what it actually is until he's forced to do so.
Yeah, I thought this was shocking too. You had the FBI, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino coming out saying right away that this was terrorism. This guy was out there with cans of alcohol, gasoline, creating flamethrowers, Molotov cocktails, screaming "Free Palestine." And for some reason, this is, he's just mentally ill. He just needs a little extra help. Some kind of inpatient facility. No, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, they called this out, and the local officials who. They just think that this is not a big deal or something. Is that what's going on here? I thought that was shocking as well. Clearly this kind of stuff is terrorism, and it's going on far too much. This global intifada has hit America's streets, and we need this to come to a stop.
Yeah, and I think it's not just necessarily the global intifada that Libby is pointing out. I think this is more so this is the new tactic of the left. Like I said, this whole justification of murder and attacks really started with the Luigi situation, which was not part of the Palestine-Israel conflict. It really started with that. When he was caught and taken to jail, I've never seen anybody like the left standing up in like wanting him freed, even though it was like clear that he's the person. They weren't condemning him. They were cheering him on and hoping that more people stood up to do that. Never seen that before. And so I don't necessarily know if it's just a global intifada. I think it's just a lack of morality and lack of humanity coming from the left that, anything justifies, the means always justify that, or the ends always justify the means, no matter what those means are. And I don't think that leads to anywhere good. And so it's going to get real interesting here in the next couple of years, and it's one of those things that's really interesting with this. And let me see, I'm going to jump ahead. One of the things that's really interesting with this whole situation is Donald Trump is not kowtowing to Israel. He's actually holding Israel back from striking Iran because we're going to talk and we're going to work out a new nuclear deal. And I think that this is a good move. This is interesting from President Trump that he says this.
Back on Iran, did you warn Prime Minister Netanyahu against taking some sort of actions that could disrupt the talks there in a phone call last week?
Well, I'd like to be honest. Yes, I did. Next question, please.
Mr. President, just last on sanctions.
I did, yeah.
If Senate Republicans want to push
It's not a warning. I said, I don't think it's appropriate.
What exactly did you tell him?
I just said, I don't think it's appropriate. We're having very good discussions with him. And I said, I don't think it's appropriate right now. Because if we can settle it with a very strong document, very strong, with inspections and no trust. I don't trust anybody. So no trust. I want it very strong where we can go in with inspectors. We can take whatever we want. We can blow up whatever we want, but nobody getting killed. We can blow up a lab, but nobody's going to be in the lab, as opposed to everybody being in the lab and blowing it up, right? Two ways of doing it. Yeah, I told him this would be inappropriate to do right now because we're very close to a solution. Now, that could change at any moment. Could change with a phone call. But right now, I think they want to make a deal. And if we can make a deal, save a lot of lives.
I like that answer in a lot of ways, and I know a lot of the neocons don't like that answer because they want to bomb. They want to go to war with Iran. That's been the plan for a very long time. Now, one thing as I was listening to that, he's talking about, we can have inspectors and all this stuff, and remember, we tried that with Iraq. It is almost a little bit reminiscent of the Iraq deal that then got us into Iraq because we said that they broke the violation. They violated our the deal that we had with them when no weapons of mass destruction were ever found in Iraq. So it is starting to see a little bit of history repeating itself, to where a future administration, the intel community will come out because they want to go to war with Iran and say that they think that they're enriching, they've broken the deal and they're enriching, uranium, and they're building a bomb. Right now, the neocons are not happy. They say that actually Ben Shapiro said last week that Israel should Ben Shapiro said Israel should strike either way. Why? And a lot of people questioning why they should listen to Trump. And I'm like, well, if the U.S. if they strike and the U.S. doesn't have their backing, then I don't think Israel really exists as a country, because Iran then sends their army, which is 10 times the size of Israel's army, to war to fight them. And I think that there's a lot of people in that region that will support Iran in that fight. And so I think that Trump's doing the right thing and trying to get a deal in this situation. And Israel's doing the right thing by not attacking. I don't think it would be good for them to attack if they don't have our backing, and I don't think that we should be backing them, especially in a fight against Iran. But a lot of the neocons want it. Neocons don't care because they don't have anything to lose. Most of the neocons out there, they have no skin in the game. They're not going to be the ones going to war. Like people like Lindsey Graham, who is in Ukraine. He doesn't even have kids to send to war. But they always advocate to send your kids to their wars. It's for other people's countries. Like, listen, if Iran got a nuclear weapon, it's not going to be used against the United States. They can't reach the United States. Trump's building the iron, what is it? He called it the Golden Dome. I'm good with that. And as a minarchist libertarian, the only thing that I think that the federal government should be doing is protecting our own borders with the military. Somebody said that if Iran attacks Israel, Israel would drop a nuke on Iran, and I said, well, Pakistan has nukes, so does Russia, and both of those countries would probably support Iran. So you do the math. Like, people that don't know global, geopolitics don't understand this stuff, and Trump's on the money when it comes to trying to prevent and save lives. What he's not on the money about is these DOGE cuts. It's really saddening to see Elon Musk so disappointed. We've talked about it on this channel earlier this year. Elon Musk, DOGE. I said I was cautiously optimistic because it seemed like that they were doing good things. But then we see the DOGE cuts still haven't been haven't been voted into law. We've got a continuing resolution that funds the government through September at Biden levels spending. We had this big, beautiful bill passed the House. It's in the Senate right now. It's kind of being held up in the Senate. Will it pass? I don't know. And you have Elon very publicly, and if you really read the signs, very publicly kind of taking a shot almost at Trump in these interviews. He's very disappointed. He said that he's not going to fund much in the midterms. He said he's done enough. Probably true. You get the reality check that a lot of people who, when their first foray into politics, he kind of got that reality check. That the DOGE team was the whipping boy. They were the distraction. And it's really interesting to see him so disappointed that none of the DOGE cuts have been voted in, and now we had this massive spending bill. This is what he said about the big beautiful bill.
So, you know, I was like disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the DOGE team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, like, everything he's done on DOGE gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion. So,
and yeah, you know, it's crazy because we've been talking about this this bill, and now this does come on Saturday. The White House did say that it was sending a $9.4 billion DOGE rescissions package to Congress as soon as Monday. Here's the problem with this, though. $9.4 billion. The amount of interest we pay on our debt every year is $1 trillion. We pay $1 trillion in interest a year. 9.4 billion is like what, 0.1% of the it's like 1% of the interest that we pay. It doesn't even scratch the surface. Like it doesn't scratch the surface at all. I think that this is just to appease. So I think that they're doing this to appease all the people that have been yelling on the internet. We've been hammering them every day on the internet. Like, why are we not passing DOGE cuts? Like, when they've been working on this big spending bill that increases spending over the first 4 years and then finally cut spending in the fourth year when Donald Trump's no longer in office, so we'll never see those cuts. They've been pushing that, and we're like, well, wait a second, what happened to the DOGE cuts? You have to codify that into law, otherwise that work was for nothing. And so I think that they're pushing this $9.4 billion rescissions package simply because to appease the masses. It doesn't really do a whole lot, but it appeases the masses, right? And here's actually Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's been kind of wishy-washy. I think we talked about her a couple weeks ago when it came to this, where she kind of flipped and voted for the big, beautiful bill and pushed it basically because she does what Trump asked. But this is kind of a shot at Trump, because this was 3 hours ago. And they said as early as Monday, and she's like, me literally waiting on the DOGE cuts bill. The DOGE cuts bill has to come from the White House. And so if the White House hasn't sent it over to the House, then they're not doing anything. So this is kind of a shot at the White House, in my opinion. But coming from Marjorie, I don't think so. Now, here's again talking about the big, beautiful bill. This is Rand Paul talking about why he's not going to vote for it in its current package, because it increases spending. And it increases spending. Oh, I got an error. 1 second. So it increases spending that exceeds the DOGE cuts. So here.
You just heard the Treasury Secretary say a number of things, dismiss the potential price increases that could come from the tariffs when it comes to retailers. He also played down the cost of this tax and border bill that just passed through the House. Do you agree with his math?
Well, the math doesn't really add up. One of the things this big and beautiful bill is it's a vehicle for increasing spending for the military and for the border. It's about $320 billion in new spending. To put that in perspective, that's more than all the DOGE cuts that we found so far. So the increase in spending put into this bill exceeds the DOGE cuts. When you look just at the border wall, they have $46.5 billion for the border wall. Well, their current estimate from the CBP is $6.5 million per mile. So if you did 1,000 miles, that's $6.5 billion, but they have $46 billion. So they've inflated the cost of the wall 8-fold. So there's a lot of new spending that has to be counteracted. But essentially, this is a bill by the military industrial complex advocates who are padding the military budget. There's going to be a lot of extra money. Look, the president has essentially stopped the border flow without new money and without any new legislation. So I think they're asking for too much money. And in the end, the way you add it up to see if it actually is going to save money or add money is how much debt are they going to borrow? $5 trillion over 2 years, enormous amount.
And obviously, I think Rand is right. Like, this is the thing is like the DOGE cuts, so they've only found $174 billion to cut. And that is it's like 0.1% of the budget. It's a drop in the bucket and it's not going to do it. It takes bills like this. It takes bills to cut that spending. Unfortunately, they're not willing to cut that spending. And honestly, they're giving more money to the military who hasn't ever passed an audit in their entire existence. The DOGE team should have went to the military first to try to find out where they can save money, but nobody wants to touch military spending because strength through power, right? But military is, and I've seen it firsthand, is one of the biggest pushers of fraud, waste, and abuse. So yeah, I think we'll see what happens. It's sad to see that Elon's so disappointed. Again, with these DOGE cuts, we'll see if they come through. But right now, the DOGE cuts are not enough. It's a drop in the bucket. Trump said in the Oval Office that he said in an interview that people what is it? He thinks that they're on track to save something like $3 trillion or something like that. And the problem with that is if you can't pass it, if you don't pass it into law, if you don't pass the rescissions packages, then no, that the big beautiful bill is $5 trillion over 4 years, Jen. The rescissions package is supposed to be $9.4 billion. But if you don't pass that $3 billion that he's claiming they're on pace for in the next into law using rescissions, then really it doesn't make a difference what you found. You have to spend that money, and Congress has the power. The person has to codify that. All right, Todd. Here's my opinion on Glenn Greenwald before we go. I didn't watch the video. If you didn't know, there's this big scandal with journalist Glenn Greenwald, who apparently was paying a male prostitute, which he lives in Brazil. I will say prostitution is legal in Brazil as long as it's not exploitative. And exploitative prostitution, if it's consenting adults, it's allowed to happen. So it appears that he did not break the law in that way. A lot of people have watched this video. I have not watched the video, so I don't know. But there's now like it shifted from one thing to another. There's claims that there was a crack pipe in there. I will say DMT is also smoked out of a crack pipe, so take that as you will. So he also denies a lot of these false allegations. And I think that it is interesting watching a lot of people on the right. I was actually kind of surprised at how many conservatives did support Glenn. And I don't know why, because I will say neocons aren't going to support him. Social cons aren't going to support him because he's a gay man who adopted 2 boys from foster care who were in the foster system. But a lot of his reporting is very anti-Israel, he's been called an anti-Semite, even though it doesn't seem, I've never seen him say anything bad about Jewish people, but he is very critical of Israel the same way that I'm critical of Israel. This leak came literally the day before he was going on Tucker Carlson talking about the foreign intelligence agencies. Shocker, since in 2013, and foreign intelligence agencies have been attacking him for as long as I can remember for exposing them. Remember, he was one of the main people that reported what was in the Snowden files. So Edward Snowden released stuff in 2013. He was one of the main people that was reporting on it and explaining how, you know, the NSA was spying on the American people and how the global intel agencies were spying on the American, or spying on the global population. He was talking about in the Tucker Carlson interview, he was talking about the Israeli spy intelligence agencies and critical of that. And so there's been a lot of stuff that's kind of come out here. Now, there's been an image, like I said, somebody said there's a crack pipe in it. He denies that there. He issued this and said there's a number of falsehoods that are being discussed over the last couple of days. Now, it is interesting. He makes a good point right here. He's like, there wasn't. It's like the angry mob has watched the video multiple times over the last week. So, like, the people that are really coming after him have like studied this video, which is kind of a weird thing. I don't even want to watch it, but it's just this weird kind of crazy thing. And then people are reporting on it who haven't seen the video. So I guess I've not seen the video, so I can't report accurately on what's in the video. But he says it takes place of consenting adults doing adult things, and really I don't care what consenting adults do in the privacy of their own home. You know, other people have claimed that he's the one that leaked it. I've literally heard people say that he was smoking crack in this video, and I don't think that was the case. That would have been widely shown just in picture form all over the internet. They said that there was a crack pipe in it. I don't know. But a lot of people are reporting it as if it's truth, though people that I don't think that would have even watched the video. And I think there's just this notion. It's really interesting. You know, Matt Walsh came out and was talking about how immoral the actions and depravity these actions were and everything like that. I'm like, you know, I think I looked it up, you know, 50 Shades of Grey was the #1 movie in America for a reason. And I think I looked up the stats and it said something like 64% of women have domination fetishes, and something like 53% of men have fantasies about being dominated. So it's not my thing, but it's like, you know, what people do, I don't really care what people do. Like, humiliation fetishes seem weird to me, but it's like, I don't really care what people do, again, as long as you're not hurting people or taking their stuff, and you're not like exhibition and voyeurism are both also those are not things that I approve of, because it brings other people into your sexual gratification. But so here's some of the things that he says are lies in here. Let me see. Oh, and yeah, I was gonna say, you know, with Matt Walsh, remember like a few weeks ago we were talking about how he had actually a point, somewhat of a point, when it came to that person that used the N-word, and that it was like the end of cancel culture and de-incentivized. It basically was de-incentivizing the left from trying to cancel people for words that they say, because if you go to try to cancel somebody over the words that they say and then they make $15 million, you kind of de-incentivize that. Well, by attacking somebody like Glenn Greenwald and trying to ruin his career over this type of stuff, what you're basically doing is now incentivizing blackmail, revenge porn against public figures, which could be why so many conservatives came out in his defense. I'm just saying, there's some open secrets. There's some things that happen amongst conservatives, and some people have talked about them openly online about these rumors. I guess I'll just call them these rumors about certain creators and stuff like that, and what they do. And so there could be a little bit of that, why they are coming out in support, because they don't want their own blackmail to be put out, or they're trying to set the stage for other blackmails to be coming out of stuff. I don't know. I do think that, going after Glenn does incentivize people to blackmail you, but this is not, this is the thing is this does incentivize that, and you're actually, and again, it is really interesting to see a lot of people who are very, very critical of people who are critical of Israel, I guess I'll say. I'm not going to say that they're pro-Israel, but they're very critical of those who are highly critical of Israel, are the ones that are the most concerned about Glenn Greenwald's morality and his behavior. And so let's see. The false version of these self-anointed sexual morality police are now circulating amongst themselves, which can be seen repeated over and over in the replies to this tweet. This completely invented a new telling of events from these fantasy fiction writers and morality police. The events in this video took place. So this is okay. So the events in this video took place in my house where my kids live, and that they were present. A dumb, malicious, and obvious set of lies. This video was recorded quite some again, at least a year ago, if not more. And it obviously did take place. I think he meant to say didn't take place at or near my house, but I don't know. They also have announced that for some reason that I consume crack or meth and am tragically burdened by some crippling crack or meth addiction that has never once previously manifested to anyone in the 20 years of intense daily work I've been doing and continue to do in journalism and elsewhere, working with a large team of colleagues who invents allegations of a crack or meth addiction out of nowhere. This all happens, they say, while I filmed these events. I did not film those events and have no idea who did, and don't recall being aware that they were being filmed. Furthermore, they insist that this all happened while I was buying our children. Me and my husband did not buy our children through surrogacy, but rather used a standard adoption process through the court system to adopt our sons from the Northeast Brazil orphanage in 2017, a place they were at because they lost their biological parents and had no biological family to raise them. That is a tragic deprivement that plagues tens of thousands of kids in Brazil alone, and more than 1 million kids worldwide, most of whom linger in the dark institutions with no families until being expelled at the age of 18. That in turn happens because there are not enough people willing to adopt kids in orphanages once they reach 4 years of age. Adoption of unwanted children with no parents to raise them is one of the world's most beautiful and noble acts. There's nothing in which I'm prouder than the kids Dave and I raised together. The very baseless speculations around our kids and our family have been nothing short of vile, but also from this crowd entirely unsurprising. There are also bizarre claims that I myself somehow participated in the publication of this video, as if after 20 years of doing journalism in quite a public way, I decided out of nowhere that as I traveled last week through the US for multiple podcasts and debate appearances, I thought it would be fun to promote to the world a video depicting my private life that I, of course, knew many people would find distasteful or worse. The claim that I participated in this publication or promotion is false. Some are claiming that shortly after the video's publication, my account retweeted the video. I know nothing about that, and most certainly did not do that myself. I was traveling in the US all of last week when all of this happened, And I'm certain X has the data to verify that any retweets, if any, did not come from my device or location. But if it actually happened from someone who somehow gained access from the platform, my account, perhaps as a broader breach of to attain these videos. Now, this is interesting because there's been a screenshot that has gone around that shows his account retweeting it. But again, we know that's not always the truth. We know that that's one of the easiest things to actually, it's one of the easiest things to Photoshop. Like literally, you easily with, Canva go in there and accidentally create that as well. A lot of people that are posting, a lot of people online, especially public people, they have other people that have access to their accounts as well. And somebody on his staff could have accidentally retweeted that as well. And then realized their error real quick and unretweeted it. But at the same time, again, look at who he's criticizing. Look at the Intel. I mean, again, the Obama administration, and then the Obama administration, then the Trump administration, in Trump 1.0 in 2017, the Intel community tried to label him basically somebody that would have been a criminal for seditious conspiracy or whatever it was, the same stuff that they had Julian Assange for. A sitting congressman said that he should have been tried for sedition, right? So we know that these organizations have access to be able to get access to your phone, have access to be able to do this stuff. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he could have gotten honeypotted. There could have been that happening. Who knows? I just, again, it's one of these situations where I don't know about the crack pipe. Like I said, crack pipes, and I didn't see the video. I don't even know if it's there. If it's there, I mean, if he was smoking crack in the video, I think it would be a much different situation. Especially, I mean, but it's not in his house. And so if it's in the video, it doesn't necessarily mean it's his. I think that would be a poor situation to put yourself in, but yeah. But I wouldn't put it past any intel agencies to obtain videos of him in certain ways and then try to blackmail him. Like I said, it was really interesting that the day before he was on Tucker Carlson is when this video was released, and he was on Tucker Carlson in a video talking about foreign intel agencies. It was like, he's on Tucker, release the video. I think there was that meme, right? The reason there is a criminal investigation underway to apprehend those who obtained and published these videos is because the act constituted multiple serious crimes, including revenge porn. Those who obtained and published this video broke the law. As I said on the first day, people are free to cast moral judgments about my private sex acts depicted in the video published against my will. If somebody wants to evaluate the video's content and announce how it does or does not comport with their own personal code of private morality, feel free. I have no desire to stop anyone from doing so or convincing them to view these acts differently. I live by my own moral code about such matters, not the personal codes of others. When this video was first released last week, most people strongly opined that they believe these private consensual acts are nobody's business, but for the Matt Walshified faction of the American right, which spends most of their time and obtains most of the profits endlessly moralizing about adults' private sexual and private lives that stay out of people's private lives, reaction, especially for many leading conservatives, infuriated them. They have thus spent days inventing a complex fairy tale version of what happened here that is full of lies with no basis in anything that they could possibly know, all done to justify their own intense fixation on passionate interest in this video, but also more broadly in the private lives of adults generally. Like I said, I'm just going to say, as long as you are not hurting people and taking their stuff, I couldn't care less what you do in your private life behind closed doors. This was behind closed doors, and it was meant to stay behind closed doors, obviously for a reason, because of what the reactions would be. I just don't really think it takes away from his body of work. I think that there are people out there that want to discredit and harm Glenn's career because he's over the target, and these types of attacks and stuff like that prove it. And so, you know, who am I to say what consenting adults can or cannot do in their private lives? It's none of my business, really. It's none of your business. And that's why things like revenge porn and stuff like this are against the law, because they're meant to stay behind closed doors. And these types of things, they should, people, this again, if giving, you know, $1 million to the woman who said the N-word, you know, ended cancel culture and ended the incentive for cancel culture, then this definitely incentivizes blackmail, and more people on the right could get exposed through other blackmail means, based on, you know, what a lot of people have said in the open rumors that are out there about politician stuff. I mean, remember when Madison Cawthorn, the representative, was kind of like shamed out of Congress because he told the truth and said that, you know, a lot of your DC politicians are having, you know, sex, having orgies and all this stuff out there. I mean, I can see it. I know. I mean, we've had, I know of quite a few. There's a lot of swingers in the GOP community. I know a lot of people. Not going to kind of go too deep into how I know some of this stuff. I haven't taken part in any of that stuff, but I will say I've been propositioned more than once. There have been people that I actually like, and some of these people that it's really interesting. Some of these people that are so morally outraged by Glenn's actions are actively friends with people that have been very, that their public life has come out that they are involved in like the swinger community. And they are still actively friends with these people, and I guess justify the behaviors that they did. And like I said, I don't judge those people either. I think that, but I think that the hypocrites should really look at their own hypocrisy when it comes to somebody and what people do in their private lives, and just leave people alone. So with that though, y'all, let me know what you think in the comment section. If you haven't already, click that like and subscribe button. Follow me across all social media platforms, and I will see you next time.